guys, welcome back to my channel, Michi Makes Up. Today I want to share with you the new Lisa Eldridge eyeshadow palettes. I have 3 here. These she launched for the holidays, but I believe they are here to stay. I don't see any mention of these being limited edition. So the 3 that I picked up are going to be Cinnabar, and Cinnabar is the warmest palette of them all. And then we have Vega, which is opposite of Cinnabar. It's a very cool tone palette. And then Sorcery, I believe this one is quite popular because of just how magical it looks. There are a lot of metallics on this palette, and I've swatched this already, shared it on my TikTok and Instagram. They're just really beautiful. So we're gonna take our time to play with these palettes today. I will swatch them and create a look with each of them. I won't be doing comparisons because this video is gonna be really long if I do that. So I'm gonna do a separate video where we do compare these palettes to other palettes I have in my collection. Are we gonna find dupes? Are we gonna find just like maybe 1 or 2 similar shades, or maybe entire palettes that are very, very similar? So let me just spend a moment here and talk about the compact itself. From Lisa Eldridge's video, she mentioned just how slim the compact is. And indeed, it is slim, it is lightweight, but it does not, she did not skimp on the department of luxury or having a very sleek, still substantial feeling compact. And I find that pretty impressive because between being tiny and slim, sometimes you really have to like cut down on the weight in order to achieve that. That usually means it just feels less luxurious, but I think this also, it strikes a balance. It has like nice texture, it's very smooth, these rounded edges here, but it's still slim and lightweight. All of the shadows in any of the compacts, you can actually put something in here. And all of the shadows are refillable. You can buy individual shadows from any of the compacts and then create your own. So you just put something in here to pop up the pans and then stick whatever you'd like in its place. So I like that idea a lot. Having 3, for example, allows me then to play around and see what kind of shadows I prefer over time and just create maybe my own preferred palette, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead with swatches, and let's begin with Cinnabar because a few of you guys have told me just how beautiful you guys think Cinnabar is and that it's probably your favorite palette of all of the ones she's released. And these palettes come in several, or I guess within a palette, there can be several different eyeshadow textures, and Lisa Eldridge explained it very well in her video, so I'm not gonna try to replicate all of that information, but I will, as I swatch, tell you about each shadow's names, the type of shade they are, and the finish. The first shade we have here is Raw Sienna. It is described as a light caramel shade, and the finish, according to Lisa Eldridge, she calls this finish a seamless matte. It really feels like a soft, easily blendable, velvety to the touch kind of matte, and it does actually look quite creamy as well. And then the second shade we have Bronzite. It is a metallic finish, and it is a rich, warm bronze. Wowza. Wow. So let me just diffuse this. Now, I think with the brush I can, do a bit more of diffusion and just get that to look a little bit more smooth, but it just, the ridge here is what makes that look kind of awkward. And then moving on, we have Fired Earth, also a seamless matte. It is a deep, warm earth brown. And Lisa Eldridge did describe this palette as consisting of very warm, earthly shades. These pigments are some of the first pigments you've seen, or that they've seen historically in the earliest time when makeup was, I guess, part of a civilization, or when there was evidence that a civilization used makeup, that these tend to be the tones. And then we have Lost Summer, also a metallic, and this is a warm copper. Then we have Deep Ochre, which is a velvet matte, and these are cream to powder formulas. It feels ultra extra smooth. I mean, the seamless mattes are very smooth, but this is like an added smoothness to it. It kind of just melts into the skin. And then we have Ritual, which is, oh, my bad. Deep Ochre is described as a rich earthy brown. And then our last shade is Ritual, which is a top coat finish. It does not have a base shade to it. It's very light. So it's described as soft, light gold with warm, sparkling pearls. This shade here is, as the name implies, you can place it on top of the eyeshadow look or on the inner corner or even the brow bone type area. Let's move on to Vega. Vega has a lot more matte shades, and I'm here for it. They're all cool tone. I really look forward to using this. This eyeshadow palette really reminds me of a Lancome palette I had in the mid 2000s, late 2000s. Interestingly, Lisa Eldridge used to be the makeup or creative makeup director at Lancome for about 10 years, from 2003 to 2013. The shades in particular, and it's the pairing of it, if anything else, is this kind of a blue smoky shade with this gray. And there was like another metallic shimmery shade. And I couldn't tell you if it was going to be this one or there was a top coat that was similar. However, it's just an interesting callback. If I can find a photo of that palette, I'm going to put it here. But it's been some time, so I'll try and see. Yeah, really, really interesting. But I think that's why it drew me. That Lancome palette was one of my first eyeshadow palettes that I like went out of my comfort zone and tried to create looks. My looks weren't good with it, but it just inspired me. So that's why I picked up Vega. The first shade we have here is French Gray. It is a velvet texture, velvet finish of a matte, and it is a light neutral stone. Then we have Smoke and Mirrors. It is a seamless matte, and it is medium deep cool gray slate. Followed by Moon Swirl, a metallic. It's a cool silvery mink taupe. I love taupey shades. This is no exception. You know, it just has this kind of a touch of cool purpley, maybe even mauvey tone to it. I think it's just so beautiful. It makes it a bit like a chameleon kind of a shade. It's just, it depends what you pair it with. It can be transformed that way, and it's just interesting to look at and adds really nice dimension. Then we have Turbulence. It's also a seamless matte. It's a cool medium brown. And the last two shades, we're going to start with Supernova here. It is a luminous finish shade, and it is silver with rose pink and silver sparkles. This I would use almost very similarly as a top coat or lid topper shade. Certainly this is good for inner corners, brow bone. And then we have Lamp Black. It is a seamless matte finish shade, and it is described as a true black. I could see this in certain lighting looking maybe slightly blue in certain lighting. On my finger, I was like looking around the edges. Most of it's deposited on here. You can't really see it, but I thought, oh, maybe there is a hint of blue, because someone had mentioned it in a short I posted on YouTube. So now that it's swatched, it is truly a black shade. Moving on to the Sorcery Palette, we're going to start with the top 3-4 shades. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful palette. My goodness. I feel like these three here, actually all of them, they're like mermaid shades. I know it's called Sorcery. I describe them as magical shades because they're so beautiful, but they just remind me of mermaids. First we have Troubadour. It is a seamless matte, and it is a deep inky teal. Followed by Grotto, a metallic, cool emerald green. So mesmerizing. And then we have Madrigal, which is another metallic. It is so smooth. This is a blackened antique green gold. I do have another shade in my collection that is this kind of green gold and has some really deep tones as part of the base coat, and I'll include it in my comparison video, but it's from Pat McGrath. And then we have Mercurial. It's a luminous finish, and it's a prismatic green to heather duochrome. Very pretty duochrome. The last two shades are Mange and Swan Song. Mange is a metallic, and I can really see this being one of the most popular palettes, especially on YouTube, for us to review and try out for you guys, because it's just so interesting. There's so many pigments and sparkles and pearls in each of these shades, or at least in the metallics, that, I mean, it's just, I feel like the combination, the possibilities just seem endless. And Swan Song is also a metallic. It is a rich sapphire blue, and I do have another palette, another shade in mind that could be very similar, and we can go on and on when it comes to comparisons as well, so I gotta save that for another video. Let's get on to creating looks. I'm first going to use Vega and Cinnabar to create a look on right and left eye, and then for our finishing look we're going to go into Sorcery, because we're going to spend a little bit more time on Sorcery, I think. Dipping into raw sienna, I'm placing that all over the lid. And this is the Cinnabar palette, by the way. It's going into bronzite. I am placing the shade right here and then just moving it to the center of the lid. You can get into the shade with a finger to give you even more kind of concentrated pigment. That's what Lisa Eldridge did in her video. I'm gonna use a brush. If I feel like we need to amp this up, we can always go back in with a finger, or actually what I'm gonna do is maybe with Sorcery, that palette, I'll go in with a finger to show you the difference when you go in with a brush versus a finger with a metallic shade. Then I'm taking Fired Earth and I'm building that or placing that onto the outer corner. And this is what I would consider a very quintessential, warm, neutral palette that's going to be great for everyday looks. But also you can amp it up for evening as well. Then I'm getting into Deep Ochre. I'm actually just lightly placing that right here into the crease, kind of bridging that gap, not gap, but bridging the shade of the last shade we were using, Fired Earth. And then I'm going to bring it here to blend it into Fired Earth a bit. Then I'm going to go in with a brush here and just blend this part. And this was the same brush that I used to pick up raw sienna. Next I'm going in with a finger and I'm just going to tap it onto the center part of the lid. I'm really concentrating on more just above the lash line and not the entire center part of the lid. Taking Deep Ochre again, we're placing that onto the lower lash line, and I'm actually making it a little smoky. Then we're getting into Lost Summer. I'm putting that right here. Now, if I need more concentration, I actually might go back in with a finger. Let's see how this is looking. Okay, I'm actually going to just line that all the way through. And then I will actually put Ritual on the inner corner. I think it'll look great, brightening things up. So that is my look with Cinnabar, and I'm going to move on to the left eye using Vega. I'm taking French Gray and placing that all over the lid. Next, taking Turbulence, I am putting that onto the crease. Then going into Smoke and Mirrors and placing that onto the outer corner. And I'm going to bring that down onto the lower lash line. Next, we're taking Moon Swirl, and we're putting that from the inner corner all the way through to the center of the lid. And then now I'm actually going to use a finger because I want it to be a bit more concentrated. Next, I'm going to go back with the same brush that I used for Smoke and Mirrors, and I'm blending or adding a little bit more Smoke and Mirrors into Moon Swirl. And then just making sure there's good color below the lash line. And I can leave the look like this, but if you want it to be even smokier, even a little bit deeper, it's time to go into Lamp Black. And I'm adding some of that right here just to deepen things, and softly blend it into Smoke and Mirrors. And I'll just bring a little bit of that down, not too much. I don't want the black to dominate the look, but I want it to be smokier, everything to be just a bit smokier. And then for the finishing touch, let's get into the last shade. The sixth shade on this palette is Supernova. So for Supernova, I had the idea that we could very easily put it onto the inner corner, but I'm going to further brighten this area up. So it's gonna be, I'm gonna put it in the corner and then just bring it up here a bit. We'll see how that looks. Okay, I think we have a nice look using Vega. I really love Vega. Actually, Vega was the first palette I knew I wanted to pick up. Maybe I already said that earlier in the video, but I really, really love it. It's the blue from Smoke and Mirrors, paired with like the gray undertone of this palette is so beautiful. And it is not a color story that I have been seeing recently. So that makes it, to me, makes it even more interesting. And before I go and remove these looks, I do want to pair it with a Lisa Eldridge lipstick that I think will go with the look. So I'm going to first start with one to match with Vega here. And it's going to be from her Luxuriously Lucent lipstick line. It's called Le Rephr. And so I know I wanted a lighter neutral shade to go with this smoky look here. And I think what I would do is maybe just add a little bit more blush even, or perhaps some lip liner to just not be too washed out on this half of the face here. And that would be my look. But I'm really happy with this pairing. And then next, to go with Cinnabar on the right eye, I do have selected one of her newer velvet lipsticks, Sunday Matinee. And this is Sunday Matinee with Cinnabar. I feel like Cinnabar is a very versatile palette. You can easily create beautiful soft daytime looks, and then you can amp it up for the evening. But because it's so versatile, given those earthly tones, it also goes with a lot of different lipsticks. I thought it went okay with Le Rephr. Maybe making the eye or Cinnabar look a bit warmer because it is quite light, Le Rephr. However, now that we've got this like rosy lip, it just kind of pulls it together, which I really enjoy as well. All right, moving on to Sorcery. I'm going to get right into Madrigal, and we're using a finger to put this shade all over this area here. Wow. I mean, I could just go out like this, pop Madrigal on the left eye and just be done with it. Maybe add some black eyeliner or wing it out. Beautiful. Oh, just beautiful. I'm so tempted to just do that on the left eye and just say, hey, this is the look. Okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to play with more of the shades. The next one I want to get into is going to be Swan Song. Let's see what we can do with this shade. I'm going to put Swan Song on the upper lash line. And then also on the lower lash line as well, more as a tight line. And then I'm going to go back in to just soften this a bit here. Then I'm taking Trouble Door and I'm just going to place that and blend it in, actually above Swan Song, and blend it in because I want to give it, give this area more drama, more dimension, and just shape it so it's more of a, I guess, feline or a cat eye. Going into Mercurial, I'm very curious about the shade here, so I just want to place some right here, just to brighten the area even a bit more and add more sparkles. Bring it onto the inner corner. And then with the finger, I'm going into Mage. So just lightly, and I'm tapping on Mage, really just on the crease here. And it's very, very light. I don't want there to be, you know, multiple layers of metallic, but I'm just tapping it on here to add, yet again, a little bit more dimension and a little bit more, I guess, color, a base color of some sort right here, so that when I blink, you can see it kind of goes all the way up, and then when I'm looking like this, it doesn't look like, you know, Madrigal just created this kind of hard line where I placed it with my finger. So with Mage, what we did is we actually blended out a little bit more. We just blend it out a touch more so it looks a bit like a gradient. We're moving into different shade because Mage is so silvery. It kind of works with Madrigal. It takes like the silver or a cooler sparkles in Madrigal and it gives it a kind of gradient look, so it's softened once you move up into the crease area. Well, I like that a lot. The only shade that looks like we won't be able to get into this time around is Grotto. Beautiful shade, and swatched looks like this. We can save this for next time in the comparison video. I'd be happy to do another look using Sorcery. So I'm going to just repeat the steps on this eye. We'll come back and find a matching lip to go with this look. And for lips, we're going to take Lisa Eldridge's, again, her Luxuriously Lucent lipsticks in the shade Painterly. This is the finished look using Sorcery. I love all of the palettes. Oh, they each just have, there's something very special about them. They really kind of own the space they're in. So with Cinnabar, it's truly a very earth tone, warm palette, coppery shades. None of the palettes are boring. They're all very interesting in their own way because she mixes different textures of shadows to help you create interesting, fun looks. I would say Sorcery, though, is a bit of an exception because there's actually way more metallics than any other kind of shades or textures of shades. And I guess it's also meant to be that way because Sorcery is just a very fun, a very glamorous palette. I don't think creating daytime looks it's gonna be more of a task, a chore using Sorcery, but with Vega and Cinnabar, those are easy to create daytime soft looks, and then you can just sit right back down at the end of the day when you get home and go back into the palette to amp it up, to just keep that same look but add more to it. Yeah, I think they're lovely. Vega is the cool tone palette, Cinnabar is warm, so hopefully with the demo I was able to show you and kind of contrast between the two. And then with Sorcery, we're just in another league of our own here. That is a very fun, magical palette. If I had to choose one palette to keep, it's going to be tough. Sorcery, those textures and the duochromes and the shifts and the sparkles do remind me of Pat McGrath eyeshadows and Natasha Denona. I do have quite a bit of both. So I'm going to say, based on color story and based on what I have in my collection, I think Vega is going to be the palette I'm going to keep if I could only choose one out of the group here. And let me just hold it up for you guys. I just don't have anything like this that is quite cool tone neutral, but also can be used to make very sultry, romantic, beautiful, eye-catching looks. Now, if I could keep two, obviously Sorcery is going to be the next one. And then Cinnabar is just what I would consider your quintessential warm tone, beautiful palette. You really can't go wrong. So if you're trying to pick a palette you can use for all kinds of occasions, especially daytime, my choice is going to be Cinnabar. Well, I hope to get this comparison video for you guys going very shortly here so I can share with you. Let me know below what you guys have picked up. Some of you guys have told me you've picked all of the eyeshadows. You picked them all up. That's so amazing. They all look great, and I wish I got a chance to try all of them, but at last, these are the three that I went with. Thank you guys for watching. See you very soon in the next one. And oh, by the way, if you purchase 3 items, you get this beautiful velour velvety pouch in the shade, I think, Pompadour. And Pompadour is one of her new velvet matte lipsticks she released for this holiday season. So if you're interested in any of the items, I will have links below. And yes, we'll talk very soon. Bye.